police divers found 2 plastic bags in the water near around in the surrounding area of where the submarine was.
Murders, mysteries, unexplained stories, and our family's crazy opinions on them all. Join us now. The Family School of Thought is in session.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks again for joining us on the Family School of Thought. We're excited to see everybody, and hopefully we got a good show for you tonight. And weather is cold, especially after coming back from Florida, where it was 90 degrees and sunny, and we're in the water every day. So we're kind of bummed to be back. But anyways, we're back. Jesse, why don't you get us started with some history facts?
Yes. History, unexplained mysteries. I just have one. I'm going to make it quick tonight. The Forest Grove Sound. Cassie, I don't know if maybe you've heard of this one, but in February 2016, citizens living in Forest Grove, Oregon, made 200 calls to local officials to report a suspicious, high-pitched mechanical noise in the area. City officials investigated and were unable to determine the origin or the cause of the strange sound. Officials notified residents that they were confident the unexplained noise did not pose any safety risks for the town, and that they were halting their investigation until more information or data presented itself. However, by the end of February, the noise had ceased for good, and though nobody was able ever to establish exactly what made the mechanical scream, but after that, the last noise was heard, the local officials closed their investigations. So nobody was able to ever figure it out. Nobody's investigating it anymore. I don't know where Forest Grove is located to Portland, but it's in Oregon. So there you go.
I mean, I don't know if I've specifically heard of this story, but I have heard of when you go into a forest here, it's very dense, and it's like you can get lost very easily.
Yeah.
So weird sounds doesn't sound strange to me. Something like that doesn't sound out of the
norm. You heard weird sounds.
So you know this, and you're going to listen to me and not go by yourself or call somebody when you're in there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I might
but
box
then
you
have
nose.
a story to tell, right?
No.
Young podcaster goes missing.
Have you ever got scared in the forest because of noises and stuff?
Turned around.
I mean, I've gotten turned around, but there was like one time where I was like hiking and I was like up pretty high, and I was alone with Stella just walking, and it wasn't like I was really scared, but it was like one of those moments where I was like, there's like mountain lions up here. Yeah. I didn't see any, but I was just like, yeah, there's
maybe
other
I
animals
be here by myself.
Right. And then she doesn't call every day to let me know that she's alive.
I'm alive. I'm here.
I know you are, but I never know.
So we know at all times.
Yes, you should text me every morning and say, "Good morning, Mom. I love you."
Yep. Or even if you wore a pro cam.
A what?
One of those
Pro
cameras. A what?
No. A GoPro.
I do have a GoPro. And I do say like I'm gonna film, but then I never do because I'm in public with a bunch of other people and I don't want to be that person.
Why not?
It'd be fun to watch when you get done too.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. It'd be fun to watch.
Especially if you did come in a lion or some wild animal.
I should. For those cases.
We'd laugh when you go, "Oh shit!"
I know. I think it'd be funny.
Run, Cassie, run! All right. Well, how about you, Cass? You got a good song for us?
Oh, I've got a good song for us today. And Dad, I know you know this song. This is Moonlight Drive by The Doors.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So this is actually
bad about this song.
This one actually has two separate kind of creepy things about it. This was one of Jim Morrison's first ever written songs, and he actually wrote it before the Doors were formed, and he actually played it for another bandmate who was like, well, we need to start a band based off what like his lyrics for this song. But so it's a very kind of slow melodic song, and it seems to be about taking your significant other to the beach and going out in the moonlight and swimming in the moonlight and enjoying a little date night with them. Until you get to pretty much the last couple of verses where he is talking about going in for a swim in the moon. But then the partner reaches for his hand and he doesn't take it. And all of a sudden the song is about drowning, and it's about we're going to go down, we're going to go in the ocean, and we're coming back. So this is a song about
in my head right now, by the way.
So this is a whole song about how he's going to take his lover to the beach and to the ocean and basically drown them. Whether he's with them or not, you know, we don't know. So that in itself is kind of very creepy. But I think the background of this story is actually really creepy, because this song, like I said, was one of the first songs Jim Morrison ever wrote that was, you know, for the Doors. But he wrote it while he was living on a rooftop in Venice Beach, California. I think Venice Beach. Could be wrong about that. But he wrote it while he would basically watch people in houses around him. Like he would basically be on this rooftop watching people live their lives through their windows. So he was basically peeping in on people in their like houses and in their lives, which I think is kind of creepy. And then to like write a song about, you know, drowning your significant other.
The moon. God, I love this song. Jim is right up there with Janice and Patty. I mean, was an absolute genius. He was a genius. He was a poet, by the way. There was a poem that he wrote.
Right. This was a poem that he read to his bandmate before they were bandmates, and he's like, we need to make this song.
Yeah. He is definitely one of those people that was put here on this planet for a purpose, and he did that.
And he did that.
I really think this sounds really stupid, corny, I guess, but 100 years from now, 200 years from now, they'll be playing his music and going like, what a genius he was. I really do think that.
I agree.
You know, the way they do, you know, great artists from, you know, 200-300 years ago now, they will. So
I agree. There you go. That's your song.
I'm so excited about this music. It's like, I can't wait to get this over so I can go listen to the song.
I knew you'd like this one. I found this one a couple of weeks ago, but I saved it for this purpose.
Yeah, he was a genius and one of my favorite stories of all time. And he was probably meant to die early, right?
Brightest flames burn the brightest.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Unless he's not really dead.
Could be. He is buried in Paris, and I have been to his gravesite. So
I know. I was just telling somebody yesterday about when you went to Paris. I said the two things you got to do is go visit Jim Morrison's grave and Edith Piaf's. And they're
buried in the same cemetery. So it was super easy.
God. Wouldn't that be just, you know what? Wouldn't that really be awesome if someday somebody stumbles on Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix,
just 80-year-olds jamming out.
They're all really alive, living in some community. Elvis.
Like along with Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that just be the most awesome story ever told?
Yeah.
They all
if that were true, they would probably be living in some 65 and older community down in Florida, the one like you just visited.
Right. They could be our next door neighbors, and we wouldn't know it.
And the way the person found out, they were tracking Grace Slick and they seen her go there, you know, to visit. Yeah. That'd be awesome. Awesome. Well, all right. Jim Morrison's my favorite. He was absolutely my idol growing up. I remember that's who I'm going to be, Jim Morrison.
And I have a picture of you looking just like Jim Morrison.
I thought I did.
You and your brothers.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's get on with it. Cass, I think you're up.
It's got to be something to do with Jim Morrison.
It is not to do with Jim Morrison.
Oh.
But I am up. And my story this week is the disappearance and murder of journalist Kim Wall.
Ah.
So you might have heard of this. It happened in 2017, so it's fairly recent. And it did make a lot of worldwide news because of kind of the background information. But so this happened on August 10th, 2017. Kim Wall was a Swedish freelance journalist, and she had received an invitation from a Danish entrepreneur whose name is Peter Madsen, and he was pretty much gaining a lot of traction, and he had a lot of infamy in Copenhagen, and for kind of like his, I don't know if I want to say inventions, but he had built 3 submarines, and he was in the process of building a rocket ship that would basically launch him as an amateur space, what are they called? Amateur astronaut into space, basically. So basically everything that Elon Musk is doing right now, this guy was trying to do basically on a really low budget by himself in Copenhagen. But so he invited her onto his submarine for an exclusive interview. It was scheduled to only be about a 2-hour-long interview where they would basically take the submarine out for a drive, basically a cruise. The submarine was called UC-3 Nautilus, and it departed from the harbor in Copenhagen at around 7 p.m. local time. And again, it was only supposed to be about a 2-hour trip. She had actually been planning a party with her partner at the time, and so she was supposed to come back later that night to the party, and the Nautilus never returned to harbor. So Peter, like I said, he was being interviewed by Kim, but also by a lot of other journalists because of his process of building this rocket. He was getting a lot of traction, like I said. He was doing TED Talks. And so she was not one of the only ones trying to interview him. He had a lot of interviewees coming to him. One of them actually happened to be an Australian documentary maker, and she had been filming a documentary about his process of building this rocket for about a year prior to this incident. So we have a lot of footage basically leading up to this incident from this documentary, which is where I got most of my information from. It's called Into the Deep. It's really good. It's the documentary filmmaker is Emma Sullivan. It's on Netflix if you want to watch it. It's really good. But Peter Madsen was born in Denmark in 1971. And from a very, very young age, he was interested in engineering and rockets. He actually joined a rocket club in Copenhagen right after he graduated from primary school. And it was called Dansk Amateur Rocket Club, or DARK for short. And he seemed very smart. He came up with a lot of options and building techniques for these rockets while he was in this club. But unfortunately, a lot of the members of this club kind of slowly started to see a more sinister side to him. They would even claim that just saying his name would set off the fire sprinkler alarms. So he was very volatile and quick to anger kind of thing. He took some higher education courses, like college courses. Most of them were studying welding, engineering, and like basically rocket ship construction, submarine construction. And I don't know if I said this already, but he had built 3 of his own submarines. And they were kind of like, they're not like full like army size submarines. They're basically like miniature submarines is what they call it. It looks like they're probably like at most like 10 people could fit in them really crowdedly. So he built the UC-3 Nautilus himself. And it was actually built to help him basically get the rocket he was going to launch from out into a safe area of the ocean to launch from, and then obviously to come down into. And so that's basically Peter before this incident. He worked for a different company building rockets to do the same thing, but then he diverged from them because it kind of seemed like he wanted to be the front man, the like big star of the show, and they didn't want him to do that. So he left the group and started his own little manufacturing company, workshop, where he had a lot of interns and like young engineers working for him. And then Kim Wall, she was born in Trelleborg, Sweden in 1987. I'm sorry. And she graduated from the London School of Economics and Political Science with a studies of international relations in 2011. She also studied at Lund University in Sweden, Beijing University in China, and Columbia University in New York City, with political science and journalism degrees. So she was super well-educated journalist. During her time as a freelance journalist, she actually had publications in The Guardian, the New York Times, Harper's Magazine, as well as Vice and Slate, which are kind of more investigative journalism sites. She won an award for Hansel Meredith Best Award in Best Digital Reporting for her reporting on a climate and nuclear testing on the islands of Marshall Islands in 2016. So she is kind of a well-set journalist. She was actually doing this interview for a Wired magazine's article. And like I said, she was actually, the day of August 10th, was supposed to be planning basically a going away party with her and her partner Ole Stove. Sorry, this is Swedish, so I'm probably butchering it. But they were going to be moving to Beijing, China on the 16th of that month. So they were basically having this going away party, and then Kim gets this text from Peter that's like, hey, do you want to do this interview now? We can go on the sub and do the interview tonight. And so of course she says yes, because this is like, at the time, this is one of the biggest Danish celebrities, kind of like at the time. He had a lot of pull in Copenhagen. And so at 7 p.m. on August 10th, they set sail. And like I said, they never returned to harbor. Obviously, Kim's partner, Ole, at about 1:43 in the morning, calls police and reports her missing. And they basically start a search for them then. A lot of Peter's friends and family get the call that he is missing as well. And so they're like, everybody is looking for both of them. They're looking for the sub. They can't find it. And about 10:30 a.m. on August 11th, a lighthouse spots the submarine. And so basically police searchers and a helicopter go to the location that the sub was spotted in. And they find him at about 11 a.m. But they said that they can see that the sub is sinking and it's taking on water. So they have to rescue the boat. But when they get to the boat, the only person that they rescue is Peter. He's the only one who makes it onto the rescue ship. Now, he tells them that he took Kim to shore later at night, basically, long before they found him. That she had been dropped off the night prior. He took her to shore. He was the only one on the boat. And I don't know what police were thinking, what the process was, but they almost immediately arrested him. He
Excuse
basically,
me,
like, as soon as...
When you say take to shore, I mean back where she got on to start with?
No. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of Swedish and Danish names that I can't pronounce. But from what I can tell, it's not the same harbor. It sounds like... Here's the thing, is the story he tells is it sounds like he just, like, pulled up to a beach and was like, bye, see you later. And as you'll see, like, the dots don't line up in his story, which I think is maybe why the police kind of thought it was pretty fishy. Because, like I said, like, they literally, like, it wasn't like they rescued him, took him to shore, and, like, they immediately took him into questioning. He didn't, like, they got him from the rescue boat into a police car and took him to the police department, and he never was released.
Okay,
So
but when they rescued him from the sinking sub, why didn't they have a dive team or something go in and check the submarine and see if she was in it? I mean, or did they just let it sink?
They might have. I don't know. I didn't see anything about them getting on the sub until, like, later. Like, they do, I think, like 2 or 3 days later, they bring up the sub. But it sounded like nobody was on the sub, no matter what. So even if they went on the sub while they were rescuing him, she wasn't on the sub at the time of the rescuing. So they don't find her on the sub. So they could have gone down and been like, oh, he's the only one on this boat, we gotta go. Because, like I said, it's a very small sub. Like, it's not like you could be in there for an hour and not find anyone. Like, you could, like, literally look in the hatch, like, down in the hatch, and be like, okay, there's nobody there. It's not big enough to hide.
Okay.
But so they arrest him almost immediately, take him into questioning immediately, and again, almost immediately, they believe that he purposefully sank the boat. They think that they basically call it scuttling, which is when you purposefully let water into your boat to sink it. Yes. And so for the next couple days, a lot of people are searching for Kim. They kind of believe his story where she got off, like, he let her off later or earlier, late at night the day before. So they're checking, like, beaches, like, maybe she fell, maybe she got lost, maybe she broke a leg. Like, so pretty much everybody is looking for her, thinking they can find her, like, somewhere along the route home or something like that. But of course she's not found. And when he's questioned, he keeps this story of, you know, she got off the boat long before long before it sank. And then pretty much 11 days go by, and on August 21st, a cyclist finds a mutilated torso washed up on the beach, and it is confirmed to be Kim's torso. And it is just her torso. It's basically no head, no arms, no legs, just the body, basically. So there's obviously mutilation involved. Peter, I don't know if they told him that they found a torso or what, but shortly after it's found, he admits that he had thrown Kim's body overboard. He claims that while she was climbing out of the hatch, he was holding up this big metal door, and it slipped from his hands. And basically, as she was climbing up the ladder, the hatch came down on her head and hit her head and killed her. And so he buried her at sea. And that's his story of why she washed up. Obviously, immediately, a lot of people find this story to be suspicious because now he has basically lied about his story up until this point, and then just throwing her in the ocean would not make a body lose its head or its legs or its arms. There's obviously dismemberment going on. He didn't just decide to throw her into the ocean, so it seems very suspicious on his part. And of course, a post-mortem examination of the torso reveals that the torso had 15 stab wounds on the torso, most of them being located near her groin. The torso had metal pieces tied to it, for what police believe they were weights to weigh the body down. And some of the stab wounds were located near the lungs, so they believe that he was also basically trying to press out any air within the body that would make it float to the top of the sea. So he was clearly trying to hide the body. And so almost right after this torso was found, they charge him with murder. And they set a trial date. But they're still basically looking for any evidence because there's, other than this torso, there's no evidence of what really happened to her, because they can kind of confirm that most of the stab wounds were post-mortem. So that, again, these stab wounds were just to basically make the body harder to find, not that any of them were the fatal blow. And then October 6th, almost 2 months later, police divers found 2 plastic bags in the water near, around in the surrounding area of where the submarine was found. And I don't think I said this, but they did tow the submarine. They brought it up from the seafloor and towed it back to shore. She was not found on there, obviously. There was no evidence of her found on the submarine as well. But the police find these 2 bags near where the sub had been, and it contained Kim's head, her legs, as well as some clothes and the knife. Upon examination of the head, it showed no signs of blunt force trauma, no fractures that would have been caused by a heavy door falling on it. So now Peter's story, again, falls flat. It discounts his story completely because there's no injury to her head that would cause her to die and him to bury her in the water. So, of course, his story changes again. He admits to dismembering her body now and disposing of it. But he says that she died from carbon monoxide poisoning because gases had filled up the hull while he was outside of the ship and she was inside the ship. But this is, again, a grain of rice. You can't believe a word out of his mouth at this point. And everybody doesn't believe him. All his friends and families are now coming to the conclusion that he is never going to tell the truth about what happened on that submarine, never going to tell the truth about what happened to Kim. And it's clear, they can clearly see that he is lying, and that he did something malicious.
Do I tell you not to trust anybody?
Yeah, and unfortunately, watching the documentary that was filmed by Emma Sullivan so she didn't film this documentary for the murder. She filmed it as she was going to basically do a documentary about the first amateur astronaut launching himself into space, and it turned into this. And so a lot of the people that were involved in this documentary, and even Emma herself, they were completely shocked by this. This wasn't a long time coming, we saw it coming, all this stuff, which now, unfortunately, the reason, like, you can watch it now and see it, but it's also the thing where it's like, you know that he's going to do this. You know he's going to kill her. So all of his interactions suddenly point to the fact that he is a killer and he was getting ready to kill somebody.
And was he known for being crazy in school, or did he have a background?
The only thing I can find is, like I said, he was in a club right out of like high school, basically, when he was like 18, and he seemed the other members of the club basically said he seemed like a live wire. Like, he was kind of out there, and he had like a really quick temper. That's the only thing I can find. Everyone who was involved in building this rocket, like I said, they were shocked. They were really shocked by this. And so it doesn't seem like he had like that personality where you would immediately be turned away from them.
And what made her go to that? I mean, go with him?
So she was a journalist, and this was like a big story at the time. And it's one of those things where, and I think the thing is, like, where they were living, where Kim and her boyfriend were living, they were like blocks from the work site. And so it was like one of those things where like everybody, it like seemed like a small town. So like everybody knew everybody. One of the women who was a part of this work group for Peter, she literally said like, oh, they live in my friend's old house, and like they're 2 blocks from me. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a small community and you don't expect something like this to happen.
But the theory is he planned on murdering her, so he invited her to. It's not like something happened in this trip and then he murdered.
Here's the thing, is that police and prosecutors both agree that he didn't plan for the murder to be Kim Wall. It was just whoever got on that sub with him first, because he, now that like this is coming out, Emma, the girl who was in the workshop, and then like I think another woman in the town, said that he had invited them to go on the sub with him, just like on a day trip. Like he would like text them and be like, hey, the sub's running really well, let's go on a day trip tomorrow, like let's take it out on the water tomorrow, like, hey, do you want to come? And like with Emma, he's like, hey, do you want to come film for the day? So he had multiple options basically lined up of who he was going to murder. And maybe even like, because these were all like, Kim was just, like I said, Kim was the first one to get on that sub with him alone. And maybe he thought he was going to get away with it enough where he could get these other girls on the boat and kill all of them. Like, we don't know, because this was just like, fortunately he got caught right away. But it wasn't a plan to specifically murder Kim Wall. He just was going to murder somebody, and she just got on the boat with him, which is insanely sad.
Yeah.
And the thing is that they know this now because during the investigation, they obviously took all his computers, his hard drives, everything, his work stuff, into police custody, and they found that he had multiple fetish films on his hard drive depicting murder of women due to strangulation, decapitation, burning alive, and like all of them explicitly show what they believe to be real murders caught on film. And the day of the murder, August 10th, he had Googled like woman decapitation and pain and agony. Yeah, so this was something very premeditated.
The FBI had already seen or recognized that he was looking up all this stuff, and they already suspected it?
No, it doesn't seem to be any form, like there doesn't seem to be any indication that he had been on any lists of any kind.
And where do you find a film of a woman being burned alive? I mean,
dark web.
I'm sure you can find it anywhere on the internet.
Like I literally just said he Googled it, so you could Google it. Unfortunately,
I know, but it should not be allowed to be put on.
You're right. That's
where you. I mean, that's what's wrong with our world today. Is it gives these people ideas.
You could put things on There's a reason why it's called the dark web, and
Yeah.
you can search things in incognito mode, so then it's not
Right.
nobody knows that you searched it.
Right.
Is
And
it
unfortunately, I
me?
mean, the thing is, Mom, you're right, because there's things like, even like with TikTok and Facebook, there's 1,000,005 stories of people uploading videos of suicide, killing people, and it getting lots of views before people A, realize it's real, or B, get it taken down. Like, it's just
Right.
because it's such quick,
Yeah.
it's
there's
so
definitely
quick to
should
get
be
popular.
laws
You can put
against
something up on
it.
the internet.
Well, there are laws.
Within a half second. People have already
right. It's so quick. There is laws, and that's why these videos get taken down. But it's in the time span of when it is uploaded onto the internet to when it gets taken down. Like, it could literally be 5 seconds, but there's so many people constantly on the internet that could save the video, screen record, anything, and these videos are going to be forever, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that's what it is. He did try to basically blame his young intern. So he, like I said, he was born in 1971. So at the time, he was around late 40s. And all of his interns were like 20 years old, very young. Even in the documentary, you can clearly see he's like much, much older than all of these kids. So there's definitely some kind of, I think, not like grooming as in like the pedophilic way, but like he used his age against these kids. They saw him as this like smart older man, like hero to them. And he used that against them a lot. And like, he tried to basically blame the interns for these videos that were found on his hard drive. He said, oh, they had access to my computer, they must have done it. And that's basically when they all kind of turned on him, because it was like, we had no access to they were all said they had no access to his computer. They would never search these kinds of things. And it's clear that he was trying to throw them under the bus, which upset a lot of them. I think I've talked about it, but he invited many women to have private tours on the submarine. There's no indication that he invited any male, none of his interns, nothing of the sort. It was only females had the private tours, or, private rides with him, which is, again, an indication that
not get on a submarine.
Well, don't go with anybody that you don't know who they are.
But that's the thing, is like, unfortunately, that's your journalist's job, is to put themselves in harm's way. You have to take these. This would have been like, if she got this interview and nothing happened, this would have been one of the biggest stories of the year. She would have gotten a lot of awards for this. So this is the problem with our world, is that we need these stories, and yet we put not just young women, but young male journalists in the way of danger,
Right.
And we see it all the time, especially during times of war, that we make them go to war zones and report from the war zone,
weather, severe weather,
right? Or weather, yeah, exactly. Like,
how many times have you watched meteorologists during the middle of
right?
Well, okay, let me throw this
almost
at
being
you.
blown away.
Let me throw this at you. Is it really the people who forced them to do it, or is it the reporter? Because really, do you think there's a big a demand for people to say, we need you to go because we need to know? No, it's the reporter.
I can tell you for sure that it's the channel.
I was going to say, I can tell you firsthand. I work for a small family-owned, small town local paper, and there is, like, you're required to have some sort of a story every day. But mine was a daily publication, so you have to have a story every day for that publication. And if you don't have a story, then what's wrong? Why didn't you get a story? That's your job.
They'll find somebody that can get a story.
Like, there's so many times that I wrote about stupid things that I could care less about. I don't want to write about it, but it's a story. And that's the same thing. Like, I wrote about stories about, grandma Nancy's cookies from, the recipe has been in the family for 100 years.
I
Like,
gave you
who really
lots of
cares about
stories to
that?
write on. I gave you lots of inspiration.
Sure, but what
Stories.
I'm saying
No,
is
but
that, like, as a journalist, you like,
you
that's
have to
part of
give a
your job
story.
is to, like, you're not really, sometimes you get stories that are handed to you from your boss or whatever, but for the most part, you're searching for the stories on your own.
Right.
You're
Well,
looking for
And
those stories.
you're trying to find the biggest news, because that's like the same thing with me,
Yeah.
Jess. Like, I worked at a news station during college, and that was the thing, is like, I had literally like people listening to police scanners at all times
Yes.
to find something that was happening. Even if it was like a kidnapping, they would go to the site to do a reporting on a kidnapping. And it's like, yes, in some instances it's the reporter basically wanting to get that, their name out there in the story and be the bigger, news story. But it's also, like Jesse said, like, it's, you have to have a story or they'll find somebody who's going to have a story. It's your job on the line.
Yeah. And we had in the newsroom, we had the police scanner going 24/7.
Yeah.
So it's like you're constantly listening to things, and it's just, so I can see it. Yeah, this is like,
And
maybe only 10% of the people, the population would care to hear the story, but it's a story and it's an interesting story. It's going to cause some kind of interest.
And like you say, she had degrees all over, and she wanted
very heavy
to be somebody big. And unfortunately, the bigness brought death upon her, and that's how she became big.
Well, I also don't think we should like blame her for wanting to,
No,
I don't blame her. I don't blame her, but it's unfortunate that there's crazy people in our world that took her life. Maybe he was jealous of her being so good at what she did.
Again, it had nothing to do with Kim. Yeah, like it wasn't anything against Kim herself. Like, it was just, he wanted to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And I think he, like, days, like, now all the people who are in his life, like, kind of like leading up to it, especially if you watch this documentary Into the Deep, the submarine murder case, you see it now. Like, again, it's, you see it in the way he interacts with females. You see it, like, there's even like this clip of the filmmaker Emma like miking him up, and she's like miking him up and like trying to test things, not really like paying attention to him, but he's looking at her so sinisterly. Like, he's just kind of like staring at her in this way that, like, you can just see it, like, his mind like thinking through a murder. Like, he's like, I could do this to her, I could do this to her. Like, you could just see it behind his eyes. But again, that's just knowing that he's going to do something like this. It was, so during trial, he had to go undergo a psychological examination, where they found he was a pathological liar, of course, and that he lacked empathy, remorse, and guilt. So these are common traits of a psychopath. So I don't think he's ever been diagnosed with psychopath, or I can't remember the actual term, but he's not diagnosed psychopath as far as I know, but he has traits of psychopath. Yeah, and it's, it's crazy. But the best part of the story is that on April 25th, 2018, so less than a year after her death, Peter was convicted of premeditated murder, indecent handling of a corpse, as well as sexual assault, and he was sentenced to life in prison.
Good.
And pretty much everybody involved.
It's still not enough justice, but hey.
Well, it's still not enough justice, and he did try to escape. He like held a female prison guard. He like held her with like they say a pistol style weapon. I don't think he could actually get a pistol inside a jail, but he threatened a prison guard and escaped, but he only escaped for like an hour, and he was only like 100 yards away from the prison when he got recaptured. So he is going to spend the rest of his life in prison, thankfully. And all his interns pretty much testified against him. So a lot of them are very upset about how this, that they didn't see it, but they're at least nobody's kind of standing behind him, which is nice. Because you do see sometimes where people kind of like, oh no, this is just conspiracy. They're trying to take him down, all this stuff. But it doesn't seem like anybody is
How
doing
old
that.
was he at the time?
He was, I think he's 51 now. So 45, 46, I think. I'm doing math quickly in my head.
He had never been arrested for anything else, theft or...
I don't see anything like that, but he was like, he basically make it so his former employees, I'm trying to think of their name off the top of my head. It's like, it basically, like, he was an engineer for this company in Copenhagen, and they built a rocket, successfully built a rocket and launched it. I think they did it a couple times before they were going to basically do human trials or sending a human, live human. And he kind of claims that his boss was trying to cut him out of all the publications. It was telling him he can't be seen at the launches. So he's like, oh, I can create the rockets, I can create your platforms, but I can't be seen at the launches, all this stuff. It kind of made it seem like they were trying to hide him away. But it seems like they may have seen something, like they were like concerned about something. If they were, I wish they would have said something before now. But they were actually in what like they basically called a space race. So this company was still building rockets, still sending rockets, and they were basically literally had the same launch days. They were like meters, I think yards away from each other. Like they were in almost the same parking lot, basically, with them in this company. So he was basically trying to outdo them. Maybe they were just trying to actually build this rocket, but he was very competitive, it seemed.
So the company could have been very suspicious of him.
Right.
Thinking this guy is a time bomb, but we're in a race to get this done, and he knows what he's doing. So
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a crazy, crazy story. I feel like, so the first time I heard about it, I wonder if I can share my screen. But basically, there's like this last photo of Kim Wall, and it's like the last photo when she was still just like missing person. It was like the last photo of her. I wonder if I can share my screen. Can you see my screen or no?
It seemed like I seen something of this on Netflix, and I thought, oh, I want to watch that, and I just haven't yet.
Can you guys see this or no?
No.
Just me?
Yeah.
I might not be able to share my screen because it's not really doing anything.
Make sure you're clicking the right tab that you want to share.
Well, it's like every time I click share screen, it just. I think I need to do a Chrome update. I don't know, but it's a really eerie photo. It's like both of them standing in the hatch, kind of in the shadow where like it seems very ominous. But yeah, that's the story. Unfortunately.
Good show.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah, I wish I had a better ending, but.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. So along the lines of, this was not a specific murder of Kim. He actually, the day of, if they set sail, one of his like top female workers was basically saying how she couldn't get any work done. She felt really lazy, and she like jokingly said like, I need death threats to basically get myself to work. And so he jokingly sent her threats that police believe were basically just exact descriptions of how he killed Kim.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
So it was basically like, I'm going to tie you to the hall. I'm going to stab you. I'm going to decapitate you. I'm going to dismember you. And that's what they believe that actually happened, that he tied Kim up, tortured her on the boat, and then killed her and decapitated her and dismembered her and threw her overboard. So that like those texts that the woman who like got the text and was pretty close to him wanted to remain anonymous, so she testified anonymously, but those texts and her basically interactions with Peter leading up to the murder, as well as all the footage that Emma had recorded of Peter leading up to the murder, all of it was pretty much, they said, was instrumental in his conviction, because to this day they don't know how exactly he killed Kim, but all of this stuff, the videos they found on his computer, the text messages he sent to this girl, as well as footage from Emma that was very suspicious. It had in the footage day of she interviews Peter, and they're in the background, you can see like their workstation, and on it is all these saws and like woodworking stuff and welding stuff. But one of the items is a orange handled wood saw, or like hacksaw. In the interview you can see it, and then the next day when Emma's there recording, basically like all the employees, like when they're worried about Peter still missing, you can see that the saw is not there.
Not there.
And it's not there, and they find it in the ocean, and they know for a fact it is the saw that he used to cut Kim apart.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Because was it the one in the bag?
So there was a knife in a bag, but they found the saw with her legs or her arms later on. Like all like I don't think I have it written down. But they did find, when they found her head and her legs, they found a knife. But then when they went back down and found her arms, they found the saw.
Wow.
And a screwdriver, which he used to puncture her lungs.
Mm.
God.
Yeah.
Poor woman. Poor woman.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost too like how much did you want to get caught too? Because like, why wouldn't you be the first suspect if you went on a submarine with this person and then they all of a sudden showed up, or they turned up missing? Like, you're the last person, like clearly the last person to see her.
Right. That's what, like, it's one of those things where when people think they're so smart and they get this like big ego about these things, that they don't think about the small things. Like they don't think about, like, even like I said, like he invited other girls like the next day and the next day and the next day. Like it wasn't like he was trying to get them all on boat on this one day. Like he was literally on the boat with Kim, texting other people like, hey, we should go out tomorrow. So he had like no indication that like he was going to get caught and he wasn't going to be able to do this to anybody else. Or like I said, like they almost immediately knew he purposefully sunk the ship. They're like, we can clearly see that you opened the water valves to sink the ship. So why would you purposefully sink your ship? Right. That's instrumental in your
because they could find the blood and all the stuff in the, I'm sure that if it wasn't underwater, they could have put that, whatever they put on to find out where the blood is, or
Yeah, crazy enough, I don't think there's any indication. Like they pulled the ship like I think 2 or 3 days after the 10th. And there was no indication that she was murdered. Like they still didn't even think she was murdered when they pulled the ship. So there was no blood or anything like that.
Right, because it was already taken. I mean, if he opened the valves, it was.
Well, you have to remember that they left at 7 p.m. We don't know the time of death. We don't know when she died, but he wasn't found until 11 o'clock the next morning. So he had long time to basically murder her and then clean up and then sink the ship. Like there's no evidence there.
Yeah.
To think that somebody went through that much torture.
Yeah, I know. It's
What
crazy.
is wrong with our world? There's a lot of crazy people in this world.
I got a crazy question for you girls. When we talk about the dark web, are we just talking about being on the internet? I mean, is there a different internet?
It's not really like a different internet per se, but it is like it's stuff that you couldn't just
happen upon easily.
Yeah, like you couldn't just like click a link. Well, you could click a link. I don't know.
It's it's kind of like, think about like if you like search something in Amazon, and then you like say you searched, a candle or whatever on Amazon. Yeah. If you get like 50 pages in to that search, you're no longer looking at the like candles that you were searching for. You're looking for stuff that is like crazy stuff,
Right.
So, I don't know if you've gone 50 pages in on Amazon searches, but
I certainly got carried away on the internet. We're like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I started out looking at,
right,
like going down the rabbit hole.
That's basically the dark web.
Yeah.
No, like that's the thing is like it's not.
You have to be looking for
the thing that like a lot of people think, like a lot of people when they hear dark web is they think it's like really hard to find, and they think it's like you have to have a password to get on it, and like from what I can tell from people who have gotten on the dark web, it's just like they clicked on a link and basically were on a site that is because a lot of you have to think about like people in this day and age are super super smart about internet. You can have entire sites that are not being watched by the government kind of thing. So like you can set up like blockers and walls. Unfortunately, I'm not one of the smart people on the internet, so I don't know how to like set up security for websites, but there's ways to keep it anonymous and keep it off. You can set your VPN to Copenhagen and have your website basically be centered in Copenhagen, but you live in Portland, Oregon. Like it's super easy to do that nowadays. So they can't find your site.
Our site sometimes when you look up where these people come from that are watching us, that doesn't mean that's really where they're from.
Right. That doesn't mean like we get a lot like on what I can see, we get a lot of like overseas listeners or watchers or whatever, but that doesn't mean that they actually live there. That could just mean that their VPN is set there.
Right.
Yeah.
But okay. I don't know how much I really want to know about the dark web, but at work we've talked about things. I'm like, where in the hell were you at where you seen something like that? How
the dark web?
Where were you going to come across that? And why would you want to see it? And why are you telling me about it like I would want to see it? Because don't want to see something like that. But
people can say the same thing about a true crime podcast. Why do you want to get on here and talk about death and murder and decapitation?
Yeah, but this stuff I'm talking about is sick stuff.
People are sick.
Yeah.
And I figured too, even if you're what do you call it? Where you're a ghost on there or whatever. What do you call that?
Anonymous.
Incognito.
Anonymous. Obviously, they could really trace you who it is, right? If it's coming from your VPN or your
IP address.
Yeah.
Like someone like us who's just like, oh, I can put on incognito and they can't find me. Like, they could easily find us. But there's
if I murdered somebody, they could easily take my laptop and go, oh, well, he thought he was a ghost.
Well, if it's a normal person like us who doesn't know too much about, security, internet security, I'm sure they could easily find us. But there are people who are smart enough to hide their location. So, not to give people any ideas, but it is probably possible to evade capture that way.
But the dark web is not necessarily a different web. It's just going to sites.
Yeah.
It's going to
sites that, it's going to sites that have darker content, basically.
Mm-hmm. You're just going into some other site and then you end up
you can still stumble across that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to stumble across any of that crazy crap.
Well, Mom, that would require you to actually use the internet.
Well,
able to
that's why I don't want to use it.
Get on that .com box.
Because there's so many crazy people on this .com stuff.
Really being murdered, not acted. Really,
they believe that the videos they found. Yeah, I was gonna say they believe the videos they found on his hard drive depicted real murders. That it wasn't just like an acting fetish thing. It was real people being murdered.
And how do you know that he didn't murder other people before this one?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
But they were trying to pin a couple of cases on him, but like a lot of them were like really early in the 80s. I'm like, so he was like 10? You're thinking he's 10 murdering people and getting away with it? Like, yeah, I don't think so. But so, you know, the dark web, let's go back to dark web and people finding people murdering other people. Just think of the documentary Don't Fuck with Cats. Like, that's the entirety of that documentary was people found these videos of this man murdering animals on the web. And then it literally just kept progressing until he murdered somebody and got it up. Like, he posted a video of him murdering somebody. And it took them forever to find him.
Well, and part of that, too, was like people weren't sure if it was real or not.
Right.
Exactly.
You really did. Yeah. But
so that's how easy it is to stumble. Like, these people are just trying to find videos of cats, and they found a video of someone putting a cat in a Ziploc bag and vacuum sealing it in the bag.
And again, who would want to watch a cat being murdered? What's
definitely not somebody searching for cats.
I'm gonna look for
they were very upset. Like, a lot of people watching these videos were really upset, and they spent their years looking for this guy.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a good documentary.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
And it's connected to another true crime case because he was in a relationship with one of the Ken and Barbie killers.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot that anymore.
Which is another story we should do. It's a really good story. Well, not really good. It's crazy.
The Ken guy?
Ken and Barbie killer. So it's this couple who murdered the girl's sister. And then both of them basically tried to say the other one convinced them to do it.
Oh.
But the guy, I can't remember his name now, from Don't Fuck with Cats, was in a relationship with the girl after this, after she was convicted of this murder.
I don't remember that.
They were in a relationship, which didn't make sense because he was a gay man. The person he killed was another man.
I don't think I ever finished that documentary, but
I remember that was good. I think
I watched the first episode or couple episodes, and then I got busy and then never finished it.
You guys watch way too many crazy
things. I just remember how they solved it was he had a pack of cigarettes sitting on his bed.
Right. Yeah.
They could only be bought in a certain area. And
I'll always remember that documentary because of the police, the FBI, Canadian FBI, being like, I've never seen a murder before.
Mm-hmm.
Never seen a dead body before.
Remember the picture he had over his bed? I can't remember what that was about. It was a big he had a lot of indications of who he was that people kind of slowly found. He had a Titanic keychain or something like that was from the 90s, and only he, not only he, but not a lot of people had it on their keychains anymore. There was a lot of but the people who caught him, like I said, the FBI had this was their first murder case. One of them said I've only ever seen a dead body on TV. This guy was caught by internet sleuths. The FBI did not solve this case. These people who were trying to find him and get him sent to justice were the people finding the cigarette box and finding the gas station logo that was outside his window. Right. They were doing the work. Yeah. Yeah. But I just remember there was a poster over his bed, and it was a huge clue. can't remember.
It's been a while since I watched it, so I don't remember all of it, but it's a very interesting documentary. And it's a good indication of what the dark web is.
It's also odd, and you hear this in other stories. So that guy was in his 40s. He never had any legal trouble. People thought he was odd, but, so what? I'm odd, I mean.
Right.
But then obviously he spent some time thinking about murdering somebody, and he's watching movies on how to murder people.
Right.
What a waste of life. You have that much going for you. And I
think it's ego. I really do. Like, I think it was he was an experimenter. He liked to take things apart, put them together, and see how it worked. And I think he just really wanted to see what murdering someone would be like. And I think they say that in the documentary. Like, he just wanted to know what it would feel like, to take someone's life.
And so now he's been in jail for years. Well, since
2018.
Yeah.
And maybe like 2019.
Do you know if he has any remorse? Is he like...
No. I don't think he still to this day says he's not guilty. All throughout the court case, he said he was not guilty, he pled not guilty. The only thing he will admit to was, or he might have admitted to murdering her. I don't know. But the only thing at the time of his trial that he admitted to was dismembering her. And he said that was just because he got scared and in a panic.
He
wanted to hide the body.
The door and killing her accidentally.
Well, that's the thing. Oh, I think you missed this part. She did not die from being hit by the door. Like, that was a complete lie. They found her head, and the head had no skull fracture or any blunt force trauma, so that was a lie. After they found the skull and figured out that she didn't die from a head trauma, he tried to say that she died from asphyxiation from carbon monoxide poisoning in the ship while he was outside of it.
Yeah, I heard that part. Yeah.
So, they don't know how she died. Like, that's the thing, is they don't know how he killed her.
I'm thinking he just killed. I'm thinking he cut her head off. I'm thinking he cut her head off, and then he cut off.
I think he either strangled her. I think they think he either strangled her and decapitated her, or just decapitated her. They don't really know. Like I said, all the videos he watched featured strangulation or decapitation or burning alive, and she wasn't burnt, so one of the other two.
Thanks.
Yeah,
crazy people out there.
I think there was one article that I saw that said that he confessed to murdering her in 2020, but I didn't look into that, so I don't know if that's true or not. Like, he confessed to some random person. But no, he shows no guilt, and that was one of the things that in the psychological test they said he lacked remorse or guilt for anything, and you can kind of see that in the documentary Into the Deep. Like, he's just like one of those people that he's like in the video he's talking about killing people, like for the smallest inconvenience. He's like, oh, I'm gonna kill somebody with a spoon, or I'm gonna choke you to death, or like he's constantly saying things like this. So that he just doesn't. He doesn't really care. At the time, they thought he was joking, but it's like now you realize, like, he wanted to kill people.
Right.
Crazy. Don't go out of your apartments. Don't go out of your house.
I'm going on a boat tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm not going on a boat. So.
I'm on a boat.
Okay. How about you guys got anything else? Cass, are you done with your story? I mean, did you?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to watch the documentary, but I don't know.
It's on Netflix. It's only like an hour and a half. It's really quick. I watched it like this morning.
Yeah, I swear I had seen it and I popped it up, and then I thought, well, no, I want to watch that when I have more time.
There's also, I think, a miniseries on HBO, but I don't have HBO any longer, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have HBO.
I feel like I've seen the Into the Deep, but I mean
the
title of it.
Title card, yeah.
Okay. How about
it's good, it's quick, it's really easy to watch.
Yeah.
my question for you guys are, because I don't believe in capital punishment, but should he just be put to death so we don't have to mess with anybody like that anymore? Or
No, I
he
think he should. I think he should suffer for the rest of his life.
But he's
And
not going to suffer.
Well, hopefully
Like,
the prisoners.
there's no guilt
Hopefully,
there.
prisoners will beat him up or do something
I
mean
do
to
think
him.
he was attacked. There was, I was gonna say, I think there was an attack. He was like stabbed or something. But like again, like I don't think that matters to him. Like he survived it, so he doesn't care. That almost inflates the God complex of like he tried to kill me, but I'm still alive.
But still, even if he was innocent, now he's got to be going crazy. He's got to spend the rest of his life in jail.
Yeah, could
So
be a whole big conspiracy.
It's either gonna drive him nuts that he is in jail, or he's gonna feel guilty. To be put to death, it's done with. It's over. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to worry about it anymore. He doesn't have to think about it anymore.
I know, but I don't think that that's okay. I think that he should have to think about it.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I don't think Denmark has death penalty, so I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
Okay. This isn't the States. This is Denmark. He was arrested and charged in Denmark. He's in prison in Denmark, and I don't think they have death penalty. So he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail.
Good. All right, guys. Anything else?
Not me.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching us this week. Jesse, do you have anything you would like to say? Cassie, do you have anything you would like to say?
Like, share, subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Write to us at the family school of thought at gmail.com.
I didn't catch on to that.
What was that again?
Like, share, and subscribe. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace.